Anybody that's become anything just had the willingness to believe that they could. Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy you're here. There has been so much going on in my life that excites me, but has also been so overwhelming. And so, although I recently got back from a trip to Salt Lake, I'm saving that a little later, but I want to talk about something that is in my heart right now as I'm really trying to navigate the next steps in this wild mess. And I'm so happy all are here to go on this adventure with me because I know it's going to be a whirlwind of fun and excitement and challenges and all of the things that come with just wandering the wild mess of life. But recently, as I've been doing a lot of self reflection and planning out my next steps, and crazily, as many of you probably know, like the end of the year is approaching and it feels like it's absolutely flown by. So recently, because it's cooled down a little in Tennessee, I've been picking up running again, which is something that just really something that I used to do. And it invoked like this story that I thought would be a great one to share as I'm really just kind of reflecting on still my previous life and not so much dwelling, but more like what parts of my previous life do I want to bring with me into this new one that I'm building? And I think there's parts of us that, and I talked to a friend and listener of mine, and he was talking about what he was bringing from his divorce about himself to his now life without his wife. And that's an interesting concept because I think whenever we're with anyone, whether it was a marriage, a relationship, maybe a job, there's a certain characteristics or attributes or things that you do because of your situation that aren't necessarily you, or maybe you wouldn't choose to do. And when you part from that, you're like, oh, was that me wanting to do that or was that my circumstance? So, anyhow, I'm doing a similar self reflection and thinking about what parts of my previous life do I want to continue to be part of my future life and the life that I'm building now. So, running is one of them. So, on a recent run, I'm thinking about this. And back in 2019, there was so much going on in my life and a lot of things that were completely out of my control. And if I'm honest, absolutely devastating. And I'm not ready to share those stories just yet, but it was a very challenging time in my life. And I felt like there was so much out of my control, which, as someone who had always been so in control of things, very much organized with how everything was operating in my life, it was very difficult for me to not be able to just fix or create, like, do the things I wanted to do because a lot of those things were not within my control. And that was very difficult for me. And so I had this idea that I wanted to do something that I could be in control of, that I wanted to do to kind of distract from the fact that so much was going on in my life that was out of my control. So I was like, I'm doing a half marathon. And at the time I had like ran, a handful or more of 5Ks. I'd done a few 10Ks here and there, but I was not what I would call a runner. I had ran, but I wouldn't call a runner. And I had friends that I would have considered runners, and I would never have classified myself that way. Well, I decide by myself. I mean, I'm just signing up for this half marathon and I'm going to do it. Well, little do I know, you kind of actually have to train for that. So at the time, I'm working for a large company and they have like a gym in our building and we have like a trainer and all the things. It was actually such a great time. But I had told the trainer that I was going to be running this half marathon and she was a runner. And so she was like, "Oh, great. I can give you this whole like schedule. This is what you should do." And I was like, "Perfect." Because, I'm doing this thing and I want to be successful at it. So this experienced person gave me all the steps. It was 12 weeks and I was running 5 times a week and then I would be in a good condition to be able to run this half marathon. And I realized, as I'm talking to her, I realized this is not just something like you don't just go into a half marathon and think you're going to finish 13.1 miles if you don't train at all. Apparently, some people do, and I don't think they can finish because it's just not 13.1 miles, you know, is not something you just lightly run. So I'm like, oh, great. I really actually have to like train and listen to what she's saying, or I'm not going to be successful. So she goes, "All right, well, what's the time you were thinking?" And me, I hadn't even really thought of a time. I didn't even know what a good time was. So I just said, I don't know, like under 2 hours. And she's like, "Oh yeah, that's good. That's a good goal to have." So then I look up like under 2 hours, like after our conversation, and she hands me like the 12-week program. And I'm like, I have to average like a 9-minute mile. And I just barely started running. Like I wasn't really running under 10 minutes all the time, And so I was like, wow, I'm going to really have to train. Like, I don't know. Maybe I didn't mean to say under 2 hours, but I was like, I already said it. And the stubborn competitive me was like, nope, you already told her. So we'll just figure it out as we go. So for the next 12 weeks, I took this, she actually printed it off. And this was 2019. So, and I put it on the fridge at home. And I told my ex-husband, like, I'm running this half marathon. This is when I have to run. I said, I know it's not your responsibility. Don't make me feel bad if I want to skip, but like, kind of look at me. So, anyways, I put it on the fridge. And as I'm going through the weeks, obviously it's always easier at the beginning of some goal that you have to. So now I have this goal in mind, something I can control. I already signed up for this half marathon, paid the money, told some people for accountability, told this trainer, I know she's going to ask me every time I'm at the gym, and now it's hanging on the fridge. Like, you have to do it, Heather. I pretty much set myself up to like, there's no other way. So as I'm like training, I'm crossing off the fridge and writing like my time. And the first few weeks of your just excitement, the adrenaline, like this is my goal. It's pretty easy. But as I'm getting to like week 5, I'm like, ugh, like I gotta run again. And just trying to fit in runs between like working full time and cooking dinner and like all the things. All the excuses were in my head. But having that on the fridge and looking at it every day and knowing that like low key my husband, like ex-husband knows that I said I was going to do this and I cannot complain about my life about things I can't control because I can't control them and then try to do something I can control and I'm not going to do that. Like, Heather, this is within your control. So no one's to blame if you're not successful except for you. You have the plan. You know what you need to do. It's sitting here on the fridge. What is your excuse? So I kept doing my running and I remember nights where I was just like it was already 9:30 at night and I'm like, am I really going to go, try to get in 3 miles and I'd be like, do I have to do a treadmill run, which 3 miles on a treadmill is awful. Really any more than 2 miles is awful because it's just boring. But I would do it and I remember like coming back and I'd kind of be like marking the fridge and I could see my ex-husband in the corner of my eye kind of like doing that like I'm proud of you face without saying it. And one thing I just want to throw out there that because when I first thought about this before I'm talking about it now, thankfully, it kind of made me tear up because I realize there's people in your lives. Sometimes we want to hear things, but them showing us or seeing it in their eyes is almost, if not better, than them telling you. And I wish, I could go back in time and realize that a little bit more, that I'm thankful that I had someone cheering me on with their eyes, looking at my accomplishment and me pushing myself and knowing that they were proud. So, I'm thankful that that was my experience. So, I continue to train as I digress. I continue to train. I remember, like, towards the end, like, it's becoming summer, so it's, like, even harder because 'cause we're camping and things are going on. So, I'm just getting these runs in 5 days a week wherever I can. And as the miles get longer, it's even harder to find, like, where am I gonna run 8 miles because 'cause I'm not doing it on a treadmill. And so, anyways, I do all this work. I don't miss any. Sometimes I move the dates, like she had dates, but I ran the whole 5 days a week thing. And as it gets closer, I'm just like, I don't know if I can really do under 2 hours. I'd literally only told my ex-husband and the trainer. Like I was like, I kind of didn't know if I could do that. Well, anyways, race day comes or the weekend. I'm feeling good. I have this amazing playlist, which gave me life. Like literally, I had stopped listening to music while I was running and I was just listening to podcasts so that I would be so pumped up to listen to my music on a run that it was like, you know what I mean? I had this whole strategy. Music really, it's like, but it was great. So it's day of, my ex-husband drives me to, like, this spot to get on the bus at, like, 5 AM. It's in Provo, Utah. We go up the canyon. It's the American Fork Canyon, half. They had a full. And we're going up, and I just remember, like, I didn't really feel good, and I had, like, a piece of, like, Ezekiel bread with peanut butter on it, and as I was getting on the bus, it, like, fell on the ground, and it was, like, the only thing I had to eat. And, like, I was like 2-second roll, and I, like, picked it up and ate it, and it was just, like, a morning where I was like, my stomach didn't feel good. I just ate this peanut butter bread from the pavement, and I just was like, "I don't even know what I'm doing up here." Like, I should be pumped, but I'm by myself, I don't know anyone. I end up talking to these people that were training for, like, marathons because of the elevation. It was just a good run for them to, like, train themselves to run in it. So I was trying to like, oh my gosh, these people are runners. So here I am feeling all of this, like, and what's the term people use? Like, um, why can't I think of it? Imposter syndrome. There you go. Where you're almost like, I'm not a runner. What am I doing here? You're watching these people and they look like they have it all together. These are runners. Like, what am I doing up here at, 5:30 in the morning thinking I'm going to run 13.1 miles? And you get in your head like that because you don't call yourself a runner. You don't think that you are. So therefore, it's just really feels awkward to do it. Well, obviously the race starts. I have this amazing playlist and it's go time. And I'm very much aware that sometimes when you just fools rush in, you hurry up and you start just sprinting at the beginning. I like knew that I'd have to pace myself. The longest amount of miles I had ran up until this point in the training was 10. And so I knew that that took a lot out of me. So I was like, okay, we're going to just pace ourselves at the beginning. So as I'm running the race, I realized that like probably about like 6, 7 miles in, I'm like, I'm kind of hurting. Like my knee is not great, my hip, the way that you're running on the road, because we're running down this like paved canyon road, is just kind of like it's not comfortable. But I'm just trying to like mentally block it out. And as much as there's moments where I'm like, okay, I just want to stop and walk for like 1 second because I'm watching people start to do that even more. And I'm like, And these people are the runners, and I'm not saying all of them. There's people I'm just thinking that. And so I'm going, okay, no, if you stop, you won't be able to pick up the momentum again, Heather. Like you have to just keep running. There's no way. Just keep running the whole time. Like don't stop. And I realized and I'm telling you this story and I'm getting there, but this is really me trying to talk about anything in life that you're doing. It's just so much more mental because there's always going to be a million times that you'll want to stop doing it because it's not comfortable. And it's like, what do you want more? To be comfortable for a short period of time and not achieve the goal? Or is your passion and drive to achieve the goal stronger? And that's like the constant decision that you're making in life and the whole time you're running this half marathon, or at least when I am. So I'm like, no, you got to keep going. If you stop, you won't be able to pick it back up. And then who knows if you'll even be able to finish. So I just keep running. So here we are at mile 10. At this point, the most I've ever ran. And I'm like, I have to run a whole other 5K. I'm exhausted. I mean, my feet hurt, my hips hurt, my knee hurts. My music is great, but I'm just like, I have to, and I've ran enough 5Ks to be like, it's gonna take a minute. Like I'm here, even if I run it at a pretty decent pace. Like so, I'm still probably like 25 minutes more of running, if that, like at least, So I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was my biggest challenge, which is crazy because I had run 10 miles thinking about it quitting a little bit, or not quitting, but walking a little bit. But once I'm almost there, I'm only a 5K away is when I'm like, oh my gosh, can I do this? But then I was like, you have to. Of course you can. Because you said you could. You told everyone you could. You made a goal, so you can. And I just kept running. So as I'm finally seeing the end, light in the tunnel, like I don't know how, it feels like a blur. I am like just super focused, but I can see my ex-husband in the corner, like thankful for him for his support in this whole thing, by the way. But I see him and I'm like, oh, and he's trying to give me a high five, but I just speed like this, the last, like, I just see the finish line and I'm like, go time. Like, that's it. And I'd start sprinting. The only time I'd really sprinted within this whole race. Sprint. There I go. And they have like these mile markers, people that are holding signs to kind of like tell you your pace. And there was one that had the 2-hour one near me. So I'm kind of thinking like I was after him. So I'm figuring that maybe I did make my goal. But at the time, I'm just so proud of myself for finishing and running the whole time that I'm just like, okay, Heather, who cares? Now you're going to have to run another one just to make time. Like if you didn't do it, like it's okay. So the final time comes in and I look at my card and I had ran the race in 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. That literally, that difference of me sprinting at the end allowed me to accomplish my goal of under 2 hours, and I was ecstatic. And it was such this like, oh my gosh, a feeling of like, I'm so proud of myself. Like more than 12 weeks ago when I decided I was going to do this, I wouldn't even call myself a runner. I hadn't even ran more than like a 10K and had been a while. Like I can't even believe I did this. And my two, bless their heart, my two friends, that one was actually way more of a runner than me at the time. Like she didn't, and I don't blame them for this. They didn't know my goal. And they were like surprising me to come up and see me at the finish line. Well, they like stopped for coffee because they didn't think I would be doing it in under 2 hours. So they like missed me coming across the finish line. So like even, you know what I mean? I even like and no, I mean, I realized it was like such a good feeling to just do something that maybe other people weren't really thinking that you would be able to accomplish, and you did it. You wouldn't be that fast. You wouldn't be able to make it happen. Like, not that they were looking down upon it, just that, like, your belief in yourself was more than whatever else anyone else thought, and you did it. And so, as I was on my run recently, this story came to me because I feel like in life, so many times we just don't really think we can do something for whatever reason because I'm not a runner, or I'm not good at school, or I am not the greatest at this, or I don't want to put myself out there, or I've always just been this, or whatever the excuses we make. We always do that. We put ourselves in this box like this is what I can do. But yet, is it? Or is that just what we're comfortable saying? Like, this is what I'm good at, so I'm just staying in this space. But, like, how do you know you're not good at something else if you don't try? I wasn't the most, like, runner, athletic person in that race, but I finished in under 2 hours. Because it was way more about my willingness and ability to mentally tell myself that I'm not going to quit and that that's what I'm going to do and I'm gonna make it happen. And that mental strength is pretty much unmatched. Once you know what you wanna do and you make a goal and then you get a plan on how you can accomplish it. And then once your plan set in stone, you go, okay, now I'm going to execute the plan and I'm going to stick to it even when I don't want to do it. And then you do it. And then you show up and you don't quit until you accomplish the goal. And I broke it down for myself before I'm telling y'all this story. And I thought, it's really not that hard. It's more about whether you believe you can do it and how much you want it. Like, there's some things that we're like, "Well, I'm never gonna do that," because you just don't want to. It's not a goal of yours, right? But when things cross your mind that are a goal of yours, the only thing stopping you from achieving that goal is making a plan and just doing it until it happens. And we all have different things. That's what's interesting about it, you know? And that's why I think it's so important to realize that, like, different things are placed on our hearts because we all have not everyone wants to run a half marathon. And I probably am talking about this so much, you're like, it's kind of like one of those stories where, like, if you're vegan, you'll know. If you do CrossFit, you'll know. If you went abroad during, for a semester, you'll know. Like, I probably bring it up enough, but it's something you're kind of just like, eh. But I think in life, there's just so many of those things where if it's a goal, if it's on your heart and you really want it to happen, you can. Like I said in the beginning, anybody that becomes anything, they just had the willingness to believe they could be. I believed somehow, some way I could be a runner that could finish a half in under 2 hours, and I did it. And I feel like I better bring in a song here because this song always whenever I'm thinking about my goals and my dreams, there's a song by Ashley McBryde that says, called "Girl Going Nowhere." And she has a line that says, "Took a whole lot of yes, I wills, and I don't cares." Life gives you those where you have a goal or a dream, and there's people around you that may not see you that way. They may not see you as someone that can achieve that, or they may doubt that that's achievable because in their mind, it's not achievable for them. And it's hard to quiet that noise from the outside and just go, no, I can do it, And in the song, it talks about the road you're on just winds and winds. spinning your wheels, wasting your time. And so sometimes I think when you have a dream and it seems so big, people think that's almost like a waste of your time, or you're trying to do something that like not a lot of people can achieve, and I don't know how you're going to do that, like whatever. But that noise, it's like if you truly know that anything that you really want to do, you can accomplish. Like, I absolutely believe that in myself and for anyone that believes it in themselves. But I think it's just so easy at that 10 miles, even once you've gotten that far, to quit. Or it's easier sometimes just to talk about it and not do it, to complain about it and not change, to wonder but not act. I'll tell you one last little story before I wrap this up. A dear friend of mine in Nashville, one of the first guys I met out here, and still a great friend of mine. When I decided I was going to start this podcast, I was so stoked about it and I had this whole vision. But I would talk about it. And one night after a night out in Nashville, I'm with my buddy and I'm talking about it. And he looks at me and he goes, Heather, I don't want to hear about it again until you do it. I don't want to hear you talk about your podcast until you have it. You can do it. I know you can. Where's the website? It takes 5 seconds. Set up the website. Do the things. He believed in me and knew I could do it and I wanted to, but I wasn't taking the actions. I was just talking about it. And it was that wake up call that I needed to be like, you're right. And even though I wasn't being negative, like, oh, I want to start this podcast, but I don't know how, a lot of people, there's either one or two ways. Either you just talk about something you really want to do, but then you take no action, or you talk about something you want to change, but then you take no action. So, like, oh, I can't change my life because of this and this and this and this. And it's like, no one wants to hear you complain about it. Either change it or let it be. And that's how he felt about my podcast. Start it or stop talking about it. And not because he didn't want to hear about it. It's because literally, like, great. So when are you going to do it? I needed that wake up call. I think we all need that. Someone to check us sometimes in life, which is the great thing about partnerships. Whether it's, a friend that's just going to call you out on your life, or, a partner in life that's going to glare over and make sure you're holding those goals that you have in your heart to yourself. You're running those miles like you want to, you want to. Just knowing they're watching you, it helps. It's a motivator because not only do you not want to let yourself down, you start realizing that you don't want to let people you care about down either. So I will end this by a really cute letter that I just received in the mail. It's short and sweet, but I want to call out my aunt because she listens to the podcast, and I needed to hear this today when I'm just on a really high of high, super motivated and excited for everything ahead. And she sends me a note, and it's basically, I'll just leave a short piece of it, but it says, "Dear Heather, safe travels to you. You are such an adventurer. I remember when you were a tiny toddler, your dad and uncles would raise your arms and you and everyone would say, 'Champion.'" I remember them telling me this story, so that's what it sounded like. You certainly are a champion today. Keep learning and growing and sharing. Love, Aunt Wanda. I thank you for that. And I'm sharing this because everyone in my life that has helped push me or believe in me when I didn't know if I could believe in myself, like, Those are really the real MVPs in life. That's a big motivation for me to do things is when people tell me how much it helps them. And that's really why I'm doing this. So it's just so helpful to get that kind of feedback. And it only fuels my soul and the fire to just do even more things with this time I have on earth. The fun, the messy, the exciting, the lucrative, the, wild and crazy, all of the things. Um, I'm just so excited of this next chapter, which again, I kind of talked about ending the season. This is going to be episode 29. I think we'll end on an even note, one more, and then kind of take us into a whole new place. But I appreciate everyone here listening. And I'll leave it on my last piece of the Ashley McBryde song that says, "Where they said I'd never be is exactly where I am." Don't listen to yourself doubting yourself or to anyone else that doesn't believe that you can achieve all of the things that you want to do. If you want them enough to do the work, they will be yours. You hold that key. There's nothing you can't have in life. No one's coming to save you. You don't have to wait for the perfect time or the perfect person or the perfect life. Like you'll be waiting forever. When you decide you want to do the thing and you're going to hold your feet to the fire and you're going to finish no matter what, it'll happen. It'll happen. You got this. Thank you for listening to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. You matter.